Hello, my name is Joe Halfman, and I'm a Senior Solution Consultant with fourTENS. Welcome to part 2 of how to use a standard table control to improve the look and feel of your K2 Smartforms. Now here's that form that was discussed in part 1. In this session, I'm actually going to show you the technique that's used to create the look and feel and the style that you see on this form. Specifically, I'm just going to show initially how we can build out this contact area right here. So to do that, we're going to create a new view, and just the standard K2 item view. And we're going to create layout table only. And this is where we're going to define those 3 columns with just 1 row, and that's going to give us that 3-column look that we want on our form. So when the table comes up, you'll see by default that each of these columns is going to be auto-sized, which means each one's going to take up 1/3 of the width. Now what we want to do is we actually want to set this specifically to 350 for this column and also 350 for this column. So this is going to be our initial layout. And so in column 1, what I want to do now is we're going to build out that contact information area. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the standard table, and we're going to just drop that into our column 1 here. We're going to use 2 columns initially and 2 rows. The next thing we want to do is we're going to take this second row, and we're actually going to merge it over, because this is going to contain another table for our content, which we're going to drag right in there right now. So now here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do initially as a 1-column, 1-row table again. All right, and if we go back and look at our form here, what we want is we want a header that says contact. We're going to have some images over here that we use to collapse and show our content area here, and then in our content area we're going to have a name, phone, and email data. So let's go back over here, and so here's our content area. And what we'll do is we'll add some rows to it. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we get 6 rows, 1 for each label and 1 for each of the text boxes. Then you'll see we have our header area up here. So our header area, we're going to do something a little special. We're going to size, actually we're going to size this column here to just be about 120. And that's going to contain the picture controls that we're going to use for the expand and collapse of our content area. Now I'm going to go back down to our content area. What I want to do here, all right, is I'm going to name this particular table right here, okay? And it's important, so I'm going to name it table, and we're going to say it's our contact content. And that'll be important because we're going to use that when we target the show and height of it for expanding and collapsing the actual content area. Okay. Now let's do some styling here. So we have 2 different cells that make up our, what I'll call our header row. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the background color on this. And we're just going to do black. Make it easy for now. And I'll do the same thing in this one here. There we go. And then the other thing we want to do is we've got a table that contains our table, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to our main table here, and we're going to set also, our main table. Here we go. That has our 2 rows. And we're going to set our border color right away. And for that, we'll just leave it black. But it's important to note that the border color does need to be the same color that you choose for the background for your header. And the reason why you need to do that is if you don't, like for example, if I were to set this to yellow or red or something like that, okay, you'll see right away what happens is we see that border show up right here in between these 2 cells, and we don't want that. So in order to avoid that, what we'll do is we'll set our border color to the same as our header color. And you'll see there it disappeared. Okay. Now I'm going to take and I'm going to create my header label. And as you can see, we don't see anything there because the default color is black for the text. So we're going to change that. I'm going to change, whoops, not the background color. We're going to change the font color to white. And that's all we're going to do right now. Okay. We are going to set a text of contact. But now what I want to do is I want to take advantage of some of the box styling that K2 has. And so for labels, I can do standard heading sizes. And for this, I'm going to do a heading 2. So you'll see I got a nice larger one there. The other thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I align it correctly. So I'm going to middle align and left align. And then one last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to also, for this particular cell, I want to add a little padding. So this way I'll get a little white space around everything. So we'll do that. And there we go. So now we have our nice header built out there. The next thing we want to do, if we go back to our form here, is we're going to add these labels and these controls. So standard K2 stuff, we're just going to drag our labels onto our view here. And then we're just going to use text boxes for now. Okay, so now we have that done, and we'll just give these some names as well. Say name. And what was the other one? We've got name, phone, and email. And finally, email here. Okay, so there you go. We've got that all built out. And then one last thing I want to do, once again, is take advantage of these out-of-the-box styles. And this is an input label, so I'm going to label it, or I'm going to style that as such. So I'll do that on all 3 of these, like so. Okay, and I'll just save my work here. And that's really the basic building block. And to add additional tables, again, or additional areas, you can take the table, drag it in. You'll see I can do my 2x2 and merge my my next one, drag my next table in. As you can see, it almost becomes second nature after a while. And if you wanted to do a 2-column layout, maybe with the labels on the left-hand side, and instead, do it that way. And again, because this is its own table, we can size those, and doesn't have any effect on what we're doing in our header here. So then we can drag our labels over here and our controls over there. And then if I want to add another table or another area with a header and display information right below it, once again, you can just continue and repeat the process. And then some other things I'll just point out is that remember too that with tables, we do have the ability to set things like padding and things like that. So we can get the way we want it to look and space out and stuff like that. So that's just the basic building blocks. One thing I didn't show, and I'll pause and I'll build this out, and I'll come back and I'll show you how to do the basically the expand and collapse images to expand and collapse the table area here. Okay, so what I did was I added a couple images over here into this cell, and I just chose some out-of-the-box images for an up arrow and down arrow. And I initially hid what I'll call the expand picture here, or image, and then I show the collapse. So then let's just take a real quick look then on how this is handled, and it's actually pretty simple. So I created a named rule. In this case, I call it view accordion contact, accordion because we're expanding and collapsing it. And all I'm doing is I'm taking advantage of the visible property of the table. So you'll see under table content here, I can go to general, and there is a visible property. And so all I have to do is see if that's true. And if that's true, then I'm going to show the expand image, hide the table content, and hide the collapse image. Conversely, if it's not visible and I'm actually now expanding it, I'll do the opposite down here. The beauty of this is that if you want, you could set the visibility of the table in your initialize event, and maybe you want to initially collapse some, and then all you have to do is call this rule, and the images and the table will display properly. So that's really all we need to do. That's the basic building block here. So what it looks like when it's all built out. So if we go back to this, if we look and we see we've got several of these table and content areas built out here, this is what it looks like when it's all said and done. So there's the one we had built out, and you'll see I added an address, workflow instances, just drag some controls on there, and also had this settings over here. And finally, let's take a look at how this gets laid out on our form. So the first view you see is a header view at the top of our form. And then I'll skip the styles for a second here. And then you see the view that we had built out using our table layout. Also, for some special styling, I did set some background colors for the page as well as for the form. And we set the padding and the margin to 0 pixels. That way we get nice and tight up along both borders around our page. It gives it a nice clean look and feel. And then, as I mentioned, I do have this styles view. And in the next session, I will show you some tips and tricks that were used in the table layouts here, specifically how we got these rounded borders, which if you have K2 Cloud, you know that the most recent version of K2 Cloud does include support for rounded borders on the tables. However, that's not available in K2.5, and that's the environment I'm in. So I had to do a little CSS to make that happen. And so in the next session, I'll show that as well as the list view styling that was done in the previous session. So if you liked what you saw here and you want to learn more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks.